In this daily drop, we're going to talk about intros, outros, and the structure of videos like this and the ones that I do for Canon. So let's go. All right, it's the last episode of the first week of the daily drop, and I decided for this one to change gears a little bit. I've been talking about equipment a lot, and what I want to do is talk about structure. And the reason I'm doing this is because about a week ago, and you can see it in the playlist area of the channel and also on the landing page, the Canon EOS R5 C series that I did for them dropped. It's a 9-part series, which includes a promo video. And one of the things that I get to do, thankfully, because I love education, is create that type of content. And I'm also now doing the daily drop. And while they're wildly different in terms of approach, there are similarities, and there are similarities to my thought process in creating that content. And I would say the first thing is to think about the intro. That's giving the audience in a very short period of time an idea of what it is that you're going to be covering in that particular video. It gives people an out if it's not the right type of video for them. And it also lets you just sort of encapsulate what kind of content you're going to be covering. That might be a place where you're also going to create or put up a super or lower third with some information. And then after that intro, you have usually a transition. And that could just be a very simple dip to black and then back up on the presenter and going into the core content of the video. Or there might be something in between there, which would just be like a little bumper or a little show intro that you're going to do. If you've ever watched Gerald Undone stuff, you'll know that he also does an intro, which sort of tells you what he's going to be talking about. There's a look to the side, and then there's that little branding component there, which is not giving you more information about what the episode is, but it's part of the structure. And for the Canon videos, we have a little thing that comes up which shows you footage from the series, and then there's a little title card which says what that particular video is going to be covering, and then we dip and then come back into the actual content. So whether you're doing one or the other, it doesn't really matter. It's really a personal preference. Part of it may be branding focused or driven. When you're doing longer form content like the Canon EOS R5 C series, it's important to put chapter markers in there, because what you want your viewers to be able to do is jump to specific things that they're trying to learn about and get to those quickly and easily. And you can just put those markers in your timeline and then, of course, create a chapter list inside of your videos. But that section of the video, that's the core. That's the educational part. That's the presentation part. That's the review. That's whatever it is that content is covering. It's generally the longest part. And that's where you start to decide if you're going to integrate little graphic elements. You might also have other little pop-up elements that are helping put focus on things. You might dim part of the screen. So there's a lot of things that you can do to create a consistent visual language in your videos. And you'll see in the Canon videos, if you watch those, we have lower thirds. Some of them are driven by legal requirements where we have to say certain things. And then other ones are just to call out sections of the video or what we're going to be covering. And then you transition to the end. And at the end is really where you kind of do your, call outs can be anything in terms of showing you things on screen, but I'll call them the call outs. So for the daily drop, what I'm doing is, I say, don't forget to, and then you have these graphic elements come up. And I don't know if I'm going to continue to do it that way, but it's that consistency. It's that visual and verbal language which starts to allow your audience to understand the structure of the content that you're providing. I think it's important that when you're doing those intros and those outros, there's something about them that is consistent and that, again, the audience becomes familiar with. And then after your sign off, you're going to make a decision in terms of whether or not you're going to, for instance, just dip to black, or meaning fade out, or if you're going to dip and then come back up to some additional information, which may be a call to action. In the case of the Canon videos, it's legal disclaimers along with the logo. And in terms of the Daily Drop, it's just the C47's logo with what the company does. So you get to make those decisions. And then the bigger discussion, which we won't get into in depth right now, is how you create that content. I'm not a person who scripts. So when I produce that content for Canon, I'm responsible for the entire thing from start to finish. I'm creating a proposal, I'm creating a budget, a breakdown of what all of the videos are going to include, including a bullet list of the topics that are going to be covered, and then even more information about those things. I use that then as my blueprint to deliver the content. For the Daily Drop, it's what am I interested in talking about today? And then I think about it. I kind of go over it in my head. And then usually I don't write an outline unless it's something longer, and I'll just deliver it to camera. And I can cut around if I'm doing single by just punching in a little bit or just coming out to a wider shot. And then that change in focal length is going to give me the ability to start and stop if I need to. Most of my stuff is pretty continuous. It's a little more complicated for content like the Canon series because that stuff we're shooting multiple cameras, which first of all helps us get out of stuff a little bit easier, but it's far more technical and longer form. So I really do need to have a guide and go over that before I do each of the videos. Other people, it's all scripted. They use a teleprompter. They have a full script, which lays everything out. There's neither right or wrong for those approaches. It's just what works for you as a presenter, as an educator, as somebody who is presenting information to an audience. So hopefully that gives you some things to think about. Please make sure to put comments on the episode if you have questions about what I'm talking about. And as I said before, don't forget to, and because it's a weekend, don't forget to enjoy your friends and family. And I'll see you next week on the next episode of The Daily Drop.